So I just came out of seeing the Fantastic Four at the cinema. Look at this. Boom. If one thing we can get out of the movie, it's a great popcorn bucket. But what did I actually think of it? And what do I think compared to Superman? And who actually bought me off? Was it Warner Brothers or Marvel? And who's going to be offended by my opinion? And who's actually going to be behind it? I guess we're going to find out on the other side of this. Hi everyone, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface. Welcome to the spoiler-free review of Fantastic Four. If you want us to get into all the nitty-gritty of the spoilers, join us tomorrow for Friday Night Tights over on Nerdrotic's channel, or join me on Sunday for Afternoon Tea with Az, where I'll be going through all of the little bits and pieces. But this review is for people who haven't seen the movie yet, who just want to see what my reaction is to it without giving anything away.
Please welcome the Fantastic Four.
So first and foremost, I think one of the questions that a lot of people are going to have is, how did I find the Fantastic Four compared to Superman? And when I saw Superman a couple of weeks back, let's just say I was less than impressed. Started out giving a 5 out of 10 for the review. After sleeping on it, I actually knocked that down to a 4 out of 10. So it didn't really have much to live up to in terms of beating it, but did the Fantastic Four beat that? Yeah. Yes, it did. I enjoyed the Fantastic Four a lot more than I did Superman. For starters, I thought it told a cohesive story. It had an idea about what it wanted to do, and it competently dealt with that story. Competent isn't exactly the most complimentary language. No, I think that's fine. What the film does is the film absolutely sets up the stakes for you. It shows you how the Fantastic Four are viewed on Earth. Then it enters the threat, which we all know is Galactus. And then it deals with the fallout of that and then how they resolve it. It's standard stuff and it goes through and it's very competently dealt with. What is interesting is that the film does focus very much on the Fantastic Four, unlike Superman, which seemed more of an ensemble film. This was about their family, how they were going to deal with the problem that Galactus posed. And if you've seen the trailer, you'll know what that is, and how they come together and coexist in reality. And whereas that's pretty strong for the most part, and we'll get into that later, whenever it drifts off into a little bit of a B-plot, Ben Grimm, for example, has a B-plot, I didn't feel that his story worked or was paid off satisfactorily either. And to be perfectly honest, it could have just easily been cut out of the film, and the film would have been smoother for it. Another character is brought into the movie as well, early doors, and they are literally just used as a plot device for later on in the film. Again, better writing could have dealt with this in a much more interesting and exciting way. But let's just focus on the main cast at the moment, and my standout for the Fantastic Four was actually Johnny Storm, which is quite odd because judging by the trailers, I thought that Johnny was the character I was probably going to dislike the most. And yet, here we are. It felt like Johnny had the better growth of the characters, the better story arc out of every one of them. And I was way more invested when he was doing what he was doing on the screen than the other members of the Fantastic Four. Ben worked absolutely fine when he was part of the Fantastic Four and interacting with those characters. But like I said, when they set him off on his little side story, he just went nowhere. And to be perfectly honest with you, I didn't give two hoots. It could have been cut out. The biggest disappointments in the main cast actually turned out to be Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby. And I like Vanessa Kirby as an actress. And even though I'm no fan of Pedro Pascal, he can perform when he wants to. The thing is, during the marketing for this movie, they've been all over each other in, to be quite honest with you, pretty creepy ways. So you would have thought there would have been chemistry on screen between them, but I didn't really see it there at all. Their characters never grew. Where they started is where their characters ended. And I felt that it was a couple whose relationship was severely dominated by Sue Storm, and Pedro Pascal was very subservient to her in that. It didn't feel like a partnership, and in actual fact, I'm quite surprised that it was Pedro Pascal's Reed Richards that didn't end up being pregnant. But there was, however, a crime committed in this movie, and it was not giving Ralph Ineson enough to do. I don't think his Galactus had any more than 6 lines in the whole movie. And Ralph Ineson is a great actor who can really get his teeth stuck into some good material. And Galactus really needed a bit more fleshing out. He did look fantastic, no pun intended. I wish his colors weren't quite as muted, and they should have reflected the colorful world of the rest of the Fantastic Four, and, of course, living up to Kirby's vision too. But my goodness, please, you should have given Ralph Ineson more to do as Galactus. So I guess that takes us to the controversial usage of Shia LaBeouf's Silver Surfer, the female Silver Surfer, Silver Surf her, as opposed to Norrin Radd, who's the major Silver Surfer and also male. Was it changing it just so there was a more female presence in the film because there was too many males? I gotta say, I actually think that was the case. I didn't at first. I thought, oh, they were developing a story between her and Johnny, and it didn't seem to go where I thought it was going. Now, does that mean that's not what they had planned? No. But I thought there was going to be more to it, and they cut off at a very specific point, and that made me think, oh no, okay. So I just think that they did make it the Shia LaBeouf version to add more female presence on screen. I wouldn't say that she was obnoxious, but does she have the presence of Norrin Radd, particularly in Rise of the Silver Surfer, because we've already seen a version in that? No, I didn't think she had the presence at all, and I think the male Silver Surfer, the Norrin Radd version, would have been much more imposing, particularly for this cast. One of the things that I liked... I'm so sorry. That was terrible. And I apologize from the bottom of my heart. I could just edit this out, but I will own my dad joke and carry on. One of the things that I did like about this film was it did let things sit. They didn't undercut everything with stupid Marvel humor, which of course just isn't funny at all. When there was a stake presented, there were times in a film where they let the cast deal with that. They didn't try to do something silly or goofy. They actually got on and tried to resolve the issue. Believe you me, that was much appreciated. Can we see that in a lot more of these films? That being said, the movie, as you've seen from the trailers, does pose a very interesting quandary, which is when you have a group of heroes that's so beloved, like the Fantastic Four, what happens when they come back from this world-destroying event and say, he did say that he would save the Earth if we gave him our son, but the cost was too high. What happens then? How do people react to those heroes? That was something that I wished was going to be explored a lot more than it was in the film. And unfortunately, it was dealt with pretty superficially and resolved with relative ease. It's a shame because that is a dilemma that could have caused some excellent tension, not just between the Fantastic Four themselves, but with everybody that surrounded them, particularly with this major threat arriving on our doorstep. Now, there's absolutely no denying that this movie has issues, and I wish there was a much better dynamic between Reed Richards and Sue Storm, but I legitimately believe, or maybe it's just good editing because there's quite a bit of stuff that's in some of the trailers which just doesn't make it into the film at all. But I did have the feeling that they were trying to make a better effort here with a movie. There wasn't all of that other stuff, that other baggage that has come along with the Marvel movies. And I think it definitely benefited from being set away from it. This is on Earth 828. It's not even in the main MCU continuity. And I kind of like that a lot. And I would like to have a lot more standalone and separate stories told, because this pseudo 60s futuristic world looked pretty cool. And the tech was interesting, which made for some very nice aesthetics, particularly when it came to living conditions, furniture, vehicles, etc. And I wish that was played on a wee bit more than it actually was. But I felt like they were legitimately trying to present something that a lot more people would like than just the minor subsection that they seem to have been catering to recently. So I would give Fantastic Four First Step somewhere around a 6.5 out of 10. But it would be more akin to a 6.5 out of 10, good effort, keep trying, as opposed to a 6.5 out of 10, need to do better. I think separating it from the rest of the MCU helped. I think cutting Marvel humor to an absolute minimum really helped, and allowing plot and character to actually develop, even if they didn't succeed with all of that, was a much better focus than just mindless action all the time and dumb one-liners. But next up, it's Doomsday, where everything just comes together. All of the characters, all of the universes, etc. So I feel this first step forward is actually going to be followed with 2 steps back, if not more, because we are just going to see that mindless explosion, one-linery, cut everything off type of crap that we've seen before this film. I hope we don't, but I'm willing to bet the farm that we will. So it might have been a step, but is it going to be anything to save the MCU? No, I don't think it's got that grasp or power. But as a separate entity, at least I was entertained for a couple of hours. So I'll see you in the next video. You take care. Goodbye, Baloo Boo.